Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Yoga Sizes podcast. I'm your host, Pen. I have Erlinda Inniss here today. She's an intuitive healer. She does tarot card readings. She does like candle work. She does, hold on, one second, as well as mediumship. So I'm really excited to have her on today. Thank you for joining us, taking your time to talk to us about this whole like intuitive work. You mentioned that you started this at age 21,
Yes.
right? Yeah,
Yes.
had to do with your grandma's passing, and you became more intuitive. So if you could like to start with sharing a little bit about your story and how you got started with this.
hmm Okay. Well, I have a very, intuitive side of my family. My grandmother is from the Philippines, and the whole line of women, were medicine women in the Philippines. So that kind of spiritual side has always kind of runs in my blood and in my family. I've always been very intuitive since I was young. But when my grandma passed at the age of 12, um, things, I guess, got more enhanced or stronger, and obviously at that age, it's something I try to push, out. You don't really know what's going on at 12, 13 years old. And it's not really something you can openly talk about, oh, I'm seeing spirit and this and that. And at the age of 20, though, 21, things kind of really boosted up, and I didn't really have a choice but to kind of follow my intuition and what spirit was guiding me to do at the time.
Thanks for sharing your story. Sorry about your grandmother passing. So once you started noticing the intuitive part, you're seeing spirits and stuff, what are some of the signs? What did you notice that things you're becoming more intuitive?
Well, I would say once, my whole living room was full of spirit. It was kind of like, okay, this is kind of going to another level here, to where it was just one after another, of wanting to communicate with me or get messages to their loved ones. And it kind of just went from there, once that happened, and it just kept going. There was no stopping, and it's very vivid for me. I'm empathic as well. That's another way that I communicate, which means that I feel their energy, or they'll make me feel how they died or how they're feeling and things like that. So that's also another way that I connect.
So in addition to the dance and family, and you're just naturally more intuitive, what are some of the other additional things that you did, like your daily practice or something that enhanced your ability?
Well, I did, when it all kind of hit me at one time, I did a large amount of meditation at the time. It was something that I was kind of forced into by my guides and things like that. So once I was doing, it was hours, of meditation at one time, a day. And it just seemed that being able to really ground myself and understand how that side works and how we're connected in that way. I would say that was my biggest thing. Obviously now I meditate every day. I don't have to meditate as long because I kind of understand my abilities and things like that now. But at the time, it was definitely meditation was a huge part of that.
You mentioned about the guides. So for somebody who haven't been in touch with their guides or searching for their guides, so what are some of the ways that you suggest for them to seek their guides, and if they find the right ones or not?
Yes. So everyone has guides. Everyone, has their own guide. They have multiple guides. One thing I tell people is give them permission to make themselves known to you. A lot of people think that, oh, I'm going to meditate and they're just going to pop up. But one thing on their side, that's kind of, I don't want to say a rule, but it kind of is, is that they don't interfere unless we ask them to. So how people have, they pray and ask for guidance and things like that, or meditate. Everybody has their own thing, but give them that permission to interfere and come in. And for me, when I did that, it was very vivid for me, the way that they came through. And I did a lot of intentional meditations. So that's when you go into a meditation intending on one certain thing. So if I wanted them to physically show themselves to me or ask them a specific question on something, I go into that meditation with that, and 9 times out of 10, you'll get your answer.
Interesting. And so do you also use like tarot cards to help like search for answers?
Um, I do tarot readings, but it's very different than mediumship. Mediumship is like kind of like what I'm known for, I guess, more so. But I do tarot readings as well. But I do not use tarot readings for the mediumship. I do use those for, if you're wanting to focus on love or finances or your own spiritual journey, because the way that I don't read tarot cards like your normal tarot card reader where they flip over the card and they say, oh, this means that. What I do is I connect with your higher self energy, and what the tarot cards do is just give me a timeline for me to kind of explain to you and connect with how things would lie out for yourself.
Interesting. So your client base, what do they usually seek from you? Like what kind of questions do they ask for your help, for your guidance?
I get a lot of people, most of my clients for mediumship, connecting with the past loved ones, and I would say I guess I don't really get that many questions from my clients about it. I think it's just more so they have their own, whether they want tarot or they want mediumship. And obviously I always ask like, well, how are you doing this? That's basically like the main question that I get. Which is, it's kind of hard to put into words. The best way I can describe it is like, when you daydream and, you're just totally dazed it out. It's like daydreaming, but then you're focusing on that daydream. Do you know what I mean? And then you're getting that information. Like that is the best way that I can explain that.
Okay. How do you, so when you work, I pretty much ask this question just in general with everybody. Like how do you basically manage yourself when dealing with the spirits, dealing with other people's energy, and just kind of protect yourself?
Yeah. I'm highly protected always with my house, and I always create a circle of light, around my house and my doorways and things like that, just because I do energy work on people as well. And sometimes that does kind of go into dealing with more of negative, entities, so to say. So I always protect my house in that way. And then I also meditate. Meditation is huge before and after. Because after any type of energy work or reading or whatever it is, I'm always extremely like drained, because it takes so much energy to do that. But as long as I'm doing my meditation, I do try to spread out my time. So I'm like every other day, just so I can make sure I'm not totally exhausting my energy or carrying anything over from another person to the next person, and making sure that I'm releasing that in between.
Oh, okay. And so is it with your sessions, do you work, you do individual work, do you do group work too?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do one-on-one and groups.
Mm-hmm. And so how do those sessions run? They like hourly base, or like how many, the time frames, are like how many weeks, how many months?
Mm-hmm. It really depends on the service. Like for mediumship, usually a one-on-one, or if I have like 2 people or 3 people, it goes about an hour and a half. Obviously if I have a group session, sometimes those can be up to 50 people at one time. So I don't read every single person in the group, but I try to get as much as I can in an hour and a half session. Sometimes it takes longer. I just kind of, let spirit guide me on what they want said at the time and follow that way. With energy work, depending on the person, it's almost kind of like a evaluation as well of what's going on here. What do you want to focus on? And depending on what that is, sometimes people come to me weekly until we've accomplished, what they're wanting to accomplish at the time.
And after the readings or the sessions, you give them recommendations that they could do, or you deliver the message, right?
Yes. Especially with the energy work, that's more something where I recommend, like, hey, continue to do this and do this. It's almost like just giving them, their tips of what they need to do until the next time that they see me, and make sure that we're making progress with what they're doing. And like the mediumship or whatever, I deliver the messages really, and that's kind of it.
So how do you add the candles into it? Like, I think you mentioned you do some channeling or work on the candles.
Okay, so what the candles are, because I'm huge into manifesting work. I'm huge in it because I firmly believe, the type of energy you put out is the energy that you get back, and just learning how to play with those energies in life so that way you have the most abundant life, So like on my site, you saw some of the candles, like a healing one or a money drawing one or love one. And that's something where I work with that person's personal energy and say, love energy. And I infuse that. I do energy work on the candle to pair with that person. And then they can burn that down. That way it releases that energy out for them. Basically energy working in their favor.
I see. And you also do crystal work too, right?
I don't necessarily do crystal work. Sometimes I'll use them when I do energy work if necessary, but I don't use crystals a lot on people because sometimes people react differently to different crystals, so I try to keep that out.
And like in terms of, I'm trying to figure out, so this whole spirits, they're usually like not harmful, right? They're usually around because they left something behind, or they have a message to deliver, or they're not realizing that they passed.
Correct.
And they're still sticking around.
Yeah, correct. I have definitely come across I think the more intuitive, the more spiritual, and the more that you do this work, obviously on a day-to-day basis, the more you are going to run into some negative, things. So I'm not going to sit here and say that it doesn't happen from time to time, but usually it's something where I end up having to do energy work on that person to help that person, that has something attached to them, or, something like that. But for the most part, as far as spirit being around me all the time, it's not harmful.
So what are some of the ways that you recommend for the person to be more intuitive, to work on the intuitive part? Because I think I can be intuitive. It's just sometimes I kind of sense things are going to happen, usually bad things. But the thing is, if I don't say it, it happens. But then if I say it, then it doesn't really happen. So I can't really differentiate which ones are like almost like a premonition type of thought, or just a random thought that comes to my mind.
Right. I would definitely say if it comes from your stomach and you feel that feeling like in your stomach, in your body, that's your intuition. If it's coming from your head or your, brain, that's something where I would think that's more of a human physical thought, and that could just be something that's getting in the way. But I think for the most part, people could say like, oh, I have this gut feeling, or, oh, I have a feeling about this, if you're feeling it, that's usually on the money right there with your intuition. So I would say that's something to pay attention to if you do feel that you're feeling this or experiencing that, to just say, okay, where's this coming from? My head or my stomach or my heart? Where are you feeling that? To kind of tell the difference there.
Okay. Um, how can you tell, like, from, if anybody, those, there are different shops for readings, and how do you tell which ones are like, who do you know, or how do you tell who are actually know what they're talking about versus somebody that just, want to do this just because?
Yeah, no, I totally get that question. Because it is kind of crazy too, because you see, I feel like it's spirituality is becoming such a thing now that it's like, who's real, who's not, who's just blowing smoke up your butt, excuse me. But I always tell everybody, whether that person is fake or not, or they really know what they're talking about, if they're helping you in a positive way, because everybody could help somebody, you know what I mean? I never want to say that person doesn't know what they're talking about, because that person may say what someone is needing at that time to help heal, you know what I mean? But I do tell people, just be careful, because there is a lot of stereotyping around this work, and just like any other you know, well, just life in general. There's good and bad in everything, and it's like, what are the intentions of that person? And usually people can tell. I always tell people, if you don't feel right getting a reading from that person, don't do it. Go to someone that you totally just feel the light and love from.
And for when it comes to, I've been told this, I don't know if it's true, but when it comes to like psychic reading about the future, especially, of course, it hasn't happened, it's the future, right? So
Right.
if you do a reading about what's coming up, and could that change the future because you know about it already?
Yes. I have a really tough time with the word psychic, because a lot of people, they refer to me as psychic and this and that, and mediumship is a type of psychic ability, but people have the wrong idea of what a psychic actually is. They think that the word psychic means telling the future, when being psychic is actually just a way of using abilities. But I always tell people, especially when I'm doing tarot readings, this is based off the current energy right now, because I do not believe that anybody could tell the future, but I can tell you what the outcome can be based off of what is happening right now and what the energy is right now, because the number one rule is everyone has free will, and you can decide whichever way you want to go, because with your decision and your choices, it changes the future. I just moved this pillow right now, and that just changed the future. You know what I mean? It's as simple as that. So I always tell people, always be open-minded in the fact of you have free will, and this is based off of your choices and decisions. But like I said, in my tarot readings, I always tell people, hey, this is based off of right now, and if you decide to go this certain path, but you don't have to. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the future is going to be a negative one, you know what I mean? But you just change what your future is all.
That makes sense. Yeah. And this just random thought that what you mentioned kind of brought up what I was thinking in terms of like miscarriages and losing child like early on, and because I had like basically a person that does intuitive reading for people, like with pregnant women dealing with losses and stuff like that. And she says something about like if you tell people too soon about the pregnancy, that especially like a Chinese thing in like a superstition. I don't know if it's superstition, but they said if you tell people about the pregnancy, you could lose that child because the spirit is not ready to be, a lot of people know about it yet. So could that be a possibility?
I actually have part of my family's from China, so they're totally, I understand that, superstitions and things like that they have. But I think in different cultures and different beliefs, that if you believe that to be true, you can make that to be true. You know, it's just going into like manifesting. You know, if you focus energy on that, on, oh, if I tell, then this is going to happen, you're creating more of a chance of that being able to happen. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I just, from a spirit perspective and what I've seen and experienced with things like that, is that everything happens for a reason. That soul departed for a reason, whether that was for, you know, your own personal growth, you know, or that's something that your soul needed to experience in order to grow. So that's how I see it from the spirit side of that.
Okay. Thanks for explaining. I just have to do this outside because my baby just woke up, so I just want to make sure that because she's too loud. I'm back. All right. So like in terms of I actually got I got a set of tarot cards and I got a set of oracle cards. So what are the difference between the two?
So oracle cards, what I find, because everyone could use them for something different. Everybody is different. Like, I have tarot cards, but I don't use them how people usually use tarot cards. But oracle cards, I feel like, are more of direct messages or what's happening at the time. Like, oh, like you can ask a specific question. You know, is this going to happen tomorrow? And then you could flip a card. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Sorry, right after I asked the question, you froze, so I didn't get the first part.
You froze too. I was like, oh no. So with tarot and oracle cards, like I said, I have tarot cards, but I don't read them or use them like, you know, your average tarot person, because everyone's different and everybody has different abilities. So you might be able to use oracle cards and do a whole spread depending on what you're receiving and what messages you're receiving at the time. But in general, I feel like oracle cards are for more direct messages at that time about something specific, where tarot cards definitely go into more detail of what's going on, based on what you're receiving.
So let me just recap because I lost that part of it. So she basically said the tarot cards is more of like more broad, right? More information, yes. More detailed, versus an oracle card is more like detailed stuff, like more specific questions to answer.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right, just make sure that I got that part in the recording. So during the reading, like a session, what does it look like for you or with the client? So they would ask questions, or you just kind of like, you know, sit with them and then you kind of feel what's going on and you're able to tell them.
Yeah, I prefer to know nothing, you know, at the time, and I just kind of go into it, read their energy, and go into it from there.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. And you mentioned that for listeners, you would offer 10% discount if anybody would like your service. So thank you for offering that to the listeners. Yes. And could you provide us with your website and links, and also share that in the description?
Yes. Do you want me to put that in the description after?
No. I once I upload the interview, I'll have the descriptions in your website and links and everything there. But in the meantime, if you could just tell the listeners your website, how do you find you?
Okay. You can go to erlinda.net. That's my website. And everything will be on there. And then what we will do is the code will be yoga sizes 333 for them to use.
Thank you so much. Sorry about this connection issue and this whole thing, but I learned a lot and it's really interesting. And thank you for sharing your story, your experience, and your knowledge in this area.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.